They were inspired by the Holy Spirit to sell their property and to give it to the apostles. So Ananias and Sapphira went into that fellowship with one thing on their mind and one thing only. How could I get a blessing? So they were willing to hijack the power of the Holy Spirit and use it for their own selfish desires. So we can be taken care of and we don't have to worry about our old age and we can have some nice things. Let's kind of dissemble and feign interest in godly things, pretend we have the Holy Spirit so we can get our blessing on. So let's look at ourselves. Holy Spirit impresses you to go to church, to join a church, to witness to someone, to pray for someone. That's a serious calling. And when you made that decision, you took on the responsibility of developing and investing the gifts that God gave you. What happens when church denominations come around and someone asks you, are you willing to teach a class or lead out in Bible study or be an usher or a deaconess or join a ministry department? What's your response? Like, nah, I'm good. Nah, I got too much going on. Nah, I need to leave right after church. I want to get my nap. When you do that, you're holding out on God. You're misusing the gifts that God gave you for the edification of the church. Now, I'm not saying you're supposed to say yes to every single person who's calling you to do something, but your church has dozens of departments, of the positions and ministries and team slots. You mean to tell me you can't do one of them? What about when someone asks you to come back in the afternoon for a youth event or for a revival meeting or to go feed the homeless or go to the nursing home and sing, and you always have some excuse because you think that there's no blessing therein? Actually, I'm going to include myself so I don't come off preaching. We think that there's no blessing within, so we're looking for the things that build us up. But if it's about somebody else at the expense of our comfort, of our time, our sleep, we're not with that. And we will not think it's selfish because we actually think that we're doing God a favor by going to church. We think that every time we crack open our Bible, we should get a pat on the back. We should get a cooker. We should get a gold star. But we see the danger from this passage in Acts 5 of putting ourselves first and getting our own blessing a priority or the priority. I want you to make a list of the top 5 or 10 things that are important to you at a church. What makes a good church? Because in reality, we're all looking for the perfect church, right? We want the grounds to be attractive. We want to see what kind of food they have. They serve breakfast. How's the potlucks? Is there a good program for the children? How is the praise team or the musicians? Are they on point? We're ultimately looking for things that bless us. And, there's nothing wrong with those qualities being on our list, but somewhere on that list and somewhere in the back of our minds, we have to be thinking, firstly, has God called me to this church? And secondly, if he has called me, why? What can I give to the church? How can I be a benefit to the church? Because we see in the book of Acts, it's a very successful church, but they had a myriad of problems. We can't consider them the perfect church because they had, big disagreements. They had sharp contention between men and women of God. There's nowhere you're going to go and find a perfect church. So we should be looking for a church that God's directed us to that will benefit from us being there. The second thing we ask ourselves is, what can you offer the church that you decide to go to besides your attendance? If you see problems in the church that you're going to, maybe God has called you there specifically to help resolve those problems instead of you turning around and trying to find a church that doesn't have those issues. What spiritual gifts has God given you for the edification of your church? Now, we know, obviously, the attractive ones, and you may say, I can't do any of those. I can't prophesy. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a teacher. I don't lead. I don't know how to evangelize. But if you go back to, Romans chapter 12, we see that giving is a spiritual gift. This bolsters the point about Ananias and Sapphira because the desire to give to the church was actually a spiritual gift that was given to them. So giving is a gift. So you know how to give, you could be doing it for God. Exhibiting faith is a spiritual gift. Bible says helping is a spiritual gift. So you know how to help in any capacity. You could implement that immediately in your church and start being a blessing to someone else. Exhortation, where you're listening to people, maybe the folks at your church where you kind of avoid because they're going to talk your ear off about some tragedy that they have. And they always have some sad story that's so horrific it should be in a movie, You see them for a distance, it's like, hey, God bless you, and you just kind of keep it moving. Maybe God has called you to exhort that person, to lift up that person, to pray with that person, to bear their burdens. That's a spiritual gift. Showing mercy is a spiritual gift. You have individuals with very difficult attitudes, that they're very belligerent, they're very abrasive, and they always want to step on your toes, whether figuratively or literally, and you're just fighting with all of your might to not throw foreign and domestic objects at them. If I weren't a Christian, you say, I would lay them out, but I'm just going to bite my tongue and walk away. No, that's not showing mercy. Showing mercy is showing the love of Christ, of loving the unlovable. Maybe God has called you to do that. Maybe that's why those individuals are in your church, and that's why you are there. Let's see what spiritual gifts we have and how we can apply those at our church to bless someone else.